Can you hear me now? Test 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll start over. Yeah, so what I was talking about was the trucker, potential trucker, and as far as I can go, I'll just get a little bit closer to the mic. The New York City, the potential that some of these truckers are not going to deliver in New York City. And it came across my radar last week, and I didn't get too excited about it. And the main reason I didn't was because I just didn't think anything was going to come of it. And what I was mentioning before when I was muted was the impact that the Canadian truckers had in Ottawa was tremendous. And I think that it had a tremendous impact, but I don't think they initially really expected it to. But it's going to be something that's going to be remembered for a very, very long time. And then others tried to sort of copy that. Washington, D.C., they tried to do the same thing in Washington, D.C., and they got sort of headed off at the pass. The D.C. police stopped them from coming in. I think this might be a little bit different. Oh, and then the other trucker protests where they were going to go to California and then Arizona, I knew that wasn't going to amount to much of anything, and it didn't. But this one, I was a little skeptical, but I think this one's different. If these truckers can all together band together and not make deliveries in New York City, I think it'll have an impact. And so this particular guy here, I'm going to play his video, Chicago Ray. I listened to him, I think it was, end of last week, maybe over the weekend. And he sort of got this whole thing going. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video.
Hey folks, your old pal Chicago Ray. I've been on the radio talking to drivers for about the last hour 15 minutes. And I'm talking to at least 10 drivers going the other way. I'm heading down from South Wisconsin. And they're going to start refusing loads in New York City starting on Monday. All right? I got about 3 drivers that I drive with. They already vibrated the boss and told them they ain't going to New York City. So, I don't know how far across the country this is, or how many truckers are going to start denying loads to going to New York City. But I'll tell you what, you fuck around and find out. Okay? We're tired of you motherfucking leftists fucking with Trump. Okay? You know, motherfuckers are starting to get tired of this shit. And you know, our bosses ain't gonna care if we deny the loads. We'll just go somewhere else. Alright? You know how fucking hard it is to get into New York City with one of these motherfuckers? Man, fuck that. Alright? I'll tell you, I don't wish nothing on nobody, but by what I'm hearing, this is real. This, you know, we'll see. But, you know, leave Trump the fuck alone with the bullshit. Alright? You know you ain't got shit on Trump, so cut the bullshit. He's gonna win this motherfucker on appeal, but it's still, you know, it's bullshit. It's election interference. So, we'll see what happens. I hate to say it, man, but motherfucking truckers are for Trump, man. I mean, we're like 95, 96% out here All Trump. Ain't no motherfuckers for Biden. All right, man. I'll let you know what else I hear if by the time Monday rolls around. But Chicago Ray, checking in. We'll see you down the road.
So sorry about the language. I forgot that there was a lot of cursing in it, but of course this stems from, some of you may know, those of you who don't, is the recent decision made by Engoron and Letitia James, the $345 million judgment against Trump for really nothing. He did nothing wrong. He did what just about every single property investor, not only in New York City, does, but also across the entire country. And of course, just like this case, the case with Fatty Willis, which her whole thing's falling apart, and the documents case, all these different cases, and the E. Jean Carroll, which again he'll win on appeal on that one as well. I'm going to play a couple of videos with that nut job, but the truckers seem to be organizing here, and I'm hoping that this will turn into something. This is one other trucker that I'm going to play his video, and he's kind of talking about the same thing, and he gives a story that's actually pretty good.
Good morning, Patriots. This is Trucker Jake. There's talk of a trucker boycott of the city of New York to protest the persecution of President Trump. Now, liberals seem to think that this is a pretty funny idea. Let me tell you a quick story. A couple years ago, a Colorado trucker was involved in a terrible accident, loss of life. It was tragic. The Colorado judge sentenced that trucker to 110 years in prison. Now, you decide for yourself whether or not he deserved that prison sentence, but when truck drivers from around America heard about that sentence, they organized a boycott against the state of Colorado. And within a month, they brought the state of Colorado to its knees. That judge resentenced that trucker from 110 years to 10 years in prison. The point is, MAGA patriots make this country run. Liberals, they make our coffee. This is Trucker Jake. God bless President Trump. God bless MAGA America. God bless our truckers. Y'all have a blessed day. Good morning.
After watching this, I got more excited about the possibility that these truckers are going to band together and refuse deliveries in New York City. And if they do that, I can't wait to see how it's going to collapse. So I'm really rooting for this. I really am. And I saw somebody say I drove to New York City one year. It's a nightmare. I grew up in New Jersey and was in New York City quite a bit. I grew up around it. And I can tell you that New York City was a hellhole until Rudy Giuliani became mayor. Now, you know how Rudy Giuliani's being treated now because he was on Team Trump. He was the only person that cleaned up New York City. Ed Koch didn't clean it up. Dinkins didn't clean it up. And before those two, it was even worse. Rudy Giuliani cleaned up that city and made it actually a nice place to go. And now he's being demonized. He cleaned up the mob. He took on the mob himself. The mob was a huge problem in New York. And he took on the mob himself, cleaned it all up, dealt with New York during 9/11. And these idiot liberals, even people that I know from New York and New Jersey, demonizing him after cleaning up the city. And that just goes to show you these types of people that are in New York. This Judge Engoron, Letitia James. Look what happened with Alvin Bragg. He let it turns out that those immigrants, those kids who were kicking cops in the head, turned out that they were gang members. He let them go without bail. Of course, they're back in court again because of the outrage. But that's what New York City is back to where it was when Dinkins and Koch were mayor. And now you see what this Engeron, he's an activist. Engeron is an activist. He's not a judge. Letitia James ran on becoming attorney general based on getting Trump. If we lose our legal system, and we don't have a legal system, we don't have one at this point. The only thing that we have that we can hope for is that the Supreme Court can get involved. These hopefully these other cases, he wins on appeal. And I know there's one that the Supreme Court took up, which I think it was the Colorado case, which I think is going to be in his favor, I think, across the board on all justices. But once we lose our justice system, which we already have in a sense, you don't have law and order. You just don't have a society anymore. So I'm hoping that this trucker protest or this delivery thing has some impact, some serious impact. But we'll have to see. But at first I wasn't really all that. Let me know what you all think. I wasn't all that excited at first, but now it seems to be a lot more activity. And I apologize for the coughing. I'm still getting over this cold. All right, so I do want to talk about this ridiculous judgment from last week. Look at this guy. You can tell. I mean, it's funny how they all have the same look about them. I had a chemistry teacher that looked like this when I was in high school in New Jersey. I'd never go back because it was so horrible growing up in the Northeast. I can't even begin to tell you. And you have people like this, like Engeron, who found Trump guilty before he even. I mean, there was really essentially no trial. He was found guilty, and then it was just the determination of how much he was going to be punished for. And it's going to be $354 million, and he can't run any businesses in New York for 3 years. I was going to read this article, but somebody made so many mistakes on it. It's really hard to read, but the New York City, Letitia James sought to essentially bankrupt Trump with a $370 million fine. And of course, Trump plans to appeal the ruling, which he will, and he should win. Yeah, he looks like he'd be somebody on Epstein Island for sure. Jonathan Turley, who's a constitutional scholar, said it was extreme and abusive. Obviously it is. The Democrats even know. Yeah, I did see that. SEC allows the Truth Social merger. Yeah, $4 or $5 billion that he's going to make off of that. It's that, it's not just simply the fact that they're throwing roadblocks in front of him and trying to bankrupt him, which I don't think that they can do. It's the fact that if you or I were in New York and we had a jury of a bunch of psycho New Yorkers, you don't get a fair trial. I mean, unless you're a flaming liberal. And that's not how the justice system is supposed to work. Washington, D.C. is the same thing. All of these people should have had a change of venue in the J6. All the J6 trials should have had a change of venue. Not one of them should have been in Washington, D.C. But that's the corruption that we're dealing with right now. We have communists and socialists and just horrible people right now that are running things, and that's why we have to have Trump in. We have no choice. The judgment is the second this year, because that E. Jean Carroll, the one who, I don't know if you've all seen videos of her. I'm playing those later, but you probably saw the one on CNN. But there's one. Wow, I mean, she's gonzo. So they said that he inflated his financial statements. And I'm not going to get into all the different things that they said, but one of them was that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. I mean, give me a break. And if we total everything up, 91 counts, 34 counts, 450 years total, this isn't a weaponization of the justice system? And wait till I play videos about the weaponization of the justice system that MSNBC, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC were talking about Trump was going to do by weaponizing the justice system. The projection is remarkable. But here's John Turley talking about how ridiculous this was.
I want to invite to come in here and talk with all of us constitutional law attorney Jonathan Turley, GWU law professor and a Fox News contributor. Jonathan, welcome. Good to have you with us this afternoon. I'm seeing numbers as high as 364 million. She asked for 370 million. So she's got a big chunk of change here if this ends up actually not being overturned on appeal, Jonathan.
Well, this court really proved Oscar Wilde's rule that the only way to be rid of temptation is to yield to it. Because the court has done everything short of ordering that Trump be thrown into a wood chipper. I mean, he's imposed almost the maximum amount that James requested. He's barring him from doing business in a city where he's an iconic business figure, barring him from getting loans. That last part is particularly ironic because the banks not only said they were not victims and did not complain about the alleged fraud, but they said they wanted to do more business with Trump, that they described him as a whale client. And so this is all being done essentially in their name as victims, even though no one lost any money. None of us could find a case like this. And yet the first one, you have this fortune that is being demanded by the court to be turned over. I think there are real problems here. I think that this is going to have the same impact on some appellate judges. There have to be some limits, including constitutional limits, on the size of penalties. This is confiscatory, and in my view, just excessive. So I think there's a major appeal, obviously, that's going to come. I was hoping that the court would defy its critics and show a more moderate response to show that, yes, there were assets that were undervalued and overvalued.
There's no way that court was going to do anything other than try and destroy Trump, because the case would never have been brought if it wasn't political. It's selective prosecution. It's prosecutorial misconduct. All of these cases are prosecutorial misconduct. And in this particular case, this is selective prosecution. And if you go after Trump, you have to go after every single person doing real estate business in New York City. And I'm going to show, no one's talking about this. This is one of the most important, and this should be, I hope, is brought, and I'm not a lawyer. I mean, I took law classes in college, but I will tell you this, I don't think you have to be a lawyer to figure this out. This article was from ABC. This was early on in the case. The judge in New York, which is Anger Moron, expressed frustration at Donald Trump's defense counsel while considering sanctioning the defendants and their lawyers for making frivolous arguments in the state civil case against the former president and others. He said, when I first heard those arguments, I thought it was a joke, said Arthur Engeron, who added that he repeatedly ruled on and been upheld on some of the arguments rehashed by the defense. Essentially what he's saying is the defense keeps on bringing up the same arguments. The rule on sanctions is if you've been warned, don't do it. You were warned. And so Trump's attorney's coming back and saying, dude, as a lawyer, I have to make arguments. And of course, Engeron was being combative the entire time. Vercula, I'm going to get to that question. Who was damaged? As a lawyer, I have to make these arguments, Trump attorney Chris Kise told Engeron. Kise earlier in the afternoon asked the judge to dismiss the case, which is reasonable, against Trump and other defendants. Kise makes the case. What is happening here is what happens every day in complex business transactions, Kise said about the vast differences in appraisals for Trump's assets. When Kise argued that no one was harmed by Trump's business dealings, Engeron offered a frank assessment. Listen to this. This is extremely important. This is how you know you have an incompetent judge and you have this is selective prosecution beyond any reasonable doubt. He said the fact that no one was hurt, does not mean the case gets dismissed. Engeron said, adding that he believes that the, quote, fairness in the marketplace was a victim of the defendant's actions. So there you go. Those of you who are wondering who was harmed. According to the judge, Engeron, the fairness in the marketplace was the victim of Donald Trump. Now, this is where, first of all, again, it's malicious prosecution, prosecutorial misconduct, selective prosecution in the sense that you have a bunch of people doing deals. Imagine all of you do stuff for a living. Can you imagine if you've been doing it for 20, 30 years and then all of a sudden somebody has it out for you because you're running for office and saying, well, you're not making that delivery the right way, or you're doing this or you're doing that, and they decide to go after you. Meanwhile, everybody does it. Nobody was harmed. You didn't harm anybody. You were just going about your job. The banks in this particular case said, we all got paid back and we wanted to do more business with them. But this right here, and why it's not being talked about is beyond me. By all these talking head lawyers on all these different, I know why they're not going to say it on CNN, MSNBC, and the liberal networks. I totally understand why they wouldn't mention it, because it makes the judge look bad. It makes the case look bad because it is bad. And so hopefully this is going to get overturned on appeal. But to go back to what you were asking, Dennis, with who was harmed, do you guys remember Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank? Here's a guy who I'm not a big fan of. I think he's an asshole, but he gives a very, very good explanation about what this is all about and what it means and the repercussions of this.
You've been doing real estate for decades. Does this case strike you as odd?
Well, let's leave out Trump for a minute, and let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere. So if you're a developer and you've got a building on a block anywhere in America and it's worth, let's say, $500 million, and you want to build a building right beside it, you go to the bank and say, this building is worth $500 million. I'd like to borrow a construction finance loan against this asset, and I want you to tell me it's worth $500 million too. And the bank negotiates with you and says, well, no, we think it's worth $400 million. And you fight it out. You're always trying to show your assets in the brightest light with the sunshine you can possibly determine for them. You want them to be worth the very most, because you're only going to get a 40 or 50% loan to value, as it's called. Then you borrow that money. In the case of a $500 million asset, maybe you get $250 million, and you build a new building with a construction finance loan. And so that's what this case is all about. And by the way, forget about Trump. Every single real estate developer everywhere on earth does this. They always talk about their asset being worth a lot, and the bank says no. And that's just the way it is. So in this case, when I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not pro or con, or I don't care about the politics, who lost money? Nobody. The bank got paid back the construction finance loan, and a new building was built. And if you're going to sue this case and win, you got to sue every real estate developer everywhere. This is all they do. This is what they do all day long, every day. So I don't think this thing will ever survive appeal, regardless of what the fine is. This doesn't even make sense. Now, look, I know Trump's got a lot of problems in other indictments and everything else, but this, if you're a real estate developer, you're watching this, you're saying, what is this? This is ridiculous.
There you go. This is ridiculous. Coming from Kevin O'Leary, billionaire, he would know. He would know. I mean, he just spelled it out for you that this is selective prosecution. Everybody does this. All these real estate developers do it. So Donald Trump is being singled out. Everybody knows he's being singled out. And the thing about it is that you have a AG supported by Soros. Okay, so the money's coming from George Soros, who is a very bad person. And he supported her as well as Bragg in New York City, Alvin Bragg. And Letitia James ran specifically on getting Trump. I mean, that's not how you run. That's not what you do. You don't run for you don't run for office saying that, oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going after one person. But she did, and she got elected. Yeah, let me take a break and welcome everyone. Of course, again, White House, WH Grandpa, thank you for bringing everybody here. Looks like Hairdresser NGA, welcome. One Zen Chick, welcome. Torito, welcome. Pohaska, I forget if I welcome you or not. One Zen Chick, Trump's assets are worth more because of the Trump brand. Not every real estate developer has that feather in their hat. No, they don't. But one guy in particular, I'm going to play a video from him because New York City's going to have a real serious problem. And those of you who just got here, I've been talking about the truckers who are organizing and hopefully will stop making deliveries in New York City in protest of this Engoron judgment of $300+ million. I'm hoping what happens is that that these truckers can bring that absurd city to its knees. But they are going to have a much bigger problem. And the bigger problem that they're going to run into, and it's going to take a bit more time to happen, is nobody's going back to the office. And because no one's going back to the office, there is an enormous amount of vacant office space. And loans are coming due. There have been extensions on these loans by the banks to these landlords, and the landlords are essentially saying, look, I'm getting down to the point where I'm not going to be able to make my mortgage payment. That's the number one thing. And then secondly, you better lower my assessed value because the value of the property that I no longer have tenants in anymore is going to drop as well. And you know what New York City is saying? Go screw yourself. We're not lowering the assessed value. So that's going to be a whole new thing. And I'm going to get into that here in a second. So New York City's in for a real problem. I mean, it's already a dump as it is. You already have a bunch of properties like Billionaires Row that are vacant. People are leaving New York in droves and coming to Florida. And New York City, I don't know if you've watched Louis Rossmann, but Louis Rossmann is a guy who had a computer repair shop, very popular on YouTube. And he finally said, I had enough, I'm moving to Texas. Because he ended up having to bear the brunt of all of the businesses that were leaving after COVID. So they were coming after him for tax money, and they were actually going after him for tax money after he left New York. So I just did a trucker New York City search on X, and it looks like shit's about to get real. I hope so. I really, really do. I really, really do. That, I'll tell you, if they can make that one look like the Ottawa deal, but this one is just being reversed. They're not going to be occupying anything. They're just not going to go. And that to me can be a very easy thing. It's a much logistically way easier to just say, we're not going to drop any loads off in New York City. Bye. You're on your own. Deal with that now. They certainly didn't fare very well during Hurricane Sandy. I can tell you that. So what is all of this? Prosecutorial misconduct, selective prosecution. In other words, it's the weaponization of the justice system. So I'm going to play a montage for you of all the libtards on MSNBC and CNN constantly since 2016 to 2020 telling you how Donald Trump was weaponizing the justice system, which is projection, the psychological phenomenon where feelings directed towards the self are displaced towards other people. It is a communist, a Marxist strategy to use projection to blame others of what they themselves are doing.
Now that he's got the right attorney general in position to do it, we now know they really have been trying to gin up criminal prosecutions and criminal investigations into the president's perceived enemies, politically motivated persecution, right? Courtesy of Bill Barr. I'll roll in the FBI on you. That's how banana republics work, right?
The home of the 45th president of the United States has been raided by the FBI.
Mr. Trump is using the Justice Department to go after his perceived enemies. I feel worried about the prospect of the Justice Department being used as a tool of this president or any. In our little banana republic, any capable prosecutor can get a grand jury to hand down an indictment of something as innocent as a ham sandwich.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump.
Breaking news on former President Trump. He's been indicted for the 4th time in 5 months.
Bill Barr, on the president's behalf, is weaponizing the Justice Department to go after the president's enemies. When you win an election, you don't seek to just prosecute the losing side.
The president using the Justice Department as a weapon to get what he wants.
Department of Justice is totally politicized.
Sicking the Department of Justice on political opponents.
Threatening to imprison his political rival, Banana Republic style.
Trying to exact revenge against all of his enemies. Tin pot dictator in a banana republic.
Is acting more like a banana republic dictator.
He's using government resources to go after his political opponent.
Essentially, we are a banana republic. That we are seeking to have a bogus and criminal investigation into a political opponent
and that's using the Department of Justice to also target Trump's political opponent for nefarious reasons. This is a massive abuse of power and a betrayal of our values.
The President of the United States is targeting a family member of a political opponent. This is the type of thing that happens in a banana republic.
And trying to take out a political rival in Joe Biden.
Criminally investigating an American political rival, someone the president is worried about losing to in the next election.
To investigate my principal opponent or a principal opponent in the upcoming election. Houston, we have a problem.
Don't you think that's something that should be investigated when the incumbent political party opens a counterintelligence investigation on the candidate of the opposing party?
We know Trump is itching to politicize the Justice Department, and the Attorney General has been super shady.
The president is weaponizing the Department of Justice to bring cases against his enemies. The Department of Justice is in an existential crisis.
Again, it's yet another example of the Justice Department basically losing all of its independence in this administration.
This is now about corrupting the next election. And for me, this was crossing the red line.
A president who is actively trying to potentially steal the upcoming election.
But to try to take out a political rival. The end goal being 2020.
Donald Trump and his attorney general are using the Justice Department. The only difference between this and a banana republic is that Trump does not eat fruit.
The 2020 election is really the last chance we have to stop our system from fully sliding into a corrupt banana republic.
Bill Barr has done everything that Donald Trump has wanted him to do. Yeah. We're living in a banana republic right now.
When you start using the Justice Department to go after your enemies, that's very, very dangerous.
Donald Trump is using the Department of Justice to go after his enemies in any way that he can.
Having the head of the chief federal law enforcement agency essentially working on his behalf to investigate a political rival.
To investigate the family of a political opponent. Basically, banana republic behavior.
We're no better than some, some banana republic.
And he's using the abuse of power and every element of the presidency to try to do something to smear me.
We just have to demonstrate that he will not take power if he does run.
So there you go. Banana Republic probably mentioned 100 times. That's what the Democrats were saying. The Marxists, even those on the right. Bill Barr was never on Trump's side, as we know. In fact, Bill Barr is probably the only person on the planet that thinks that Jeffrey Epstein actually hung himself. But nevertheless, this is what they were saying the entire Trump's presidency, and look what they're doing to him now. So I'm curious. I take another break real quick, kind of go over a couple things, but in the meantime, what do you all think should happen? With these judges and AGs, and and it's obviously they're corrupt. The American Bar Association is not going to do anything. I mean, any sort of regulatory sanctions against those committing prosecutorial misconduct, the Supreme Courts of those states typically would be the regulatory deal. They would be the ones that would punish them. But are they going to do that? The American Bar Association is completely overrun by Marxists. They have a division of disinformation. I mean, so they're out. But do you think that Donald Trump should have a special counsel or a special sort of investigative unit that goes in, and including these MSNBC, ABC, CBS, all these alphabet networks? He's even threatened their licenses. I mean, who are the ones who are actually spreading disinformation? Should he look into pulling the broadcast licenses of these companies? What do you think? I think he should. I think you should have all kinds of different special counsels. I hope that he does. I hope he keeps his promise when he says, I'm going to root out the deep state. I really, really hope that he does, because this kind of stuff cannot stand. And I certainly hope that at the very least, that the Supreme Court does their job properly. Because if they don't, we do not have a justice. I mean, it's already broken severely, almost completely gone. But you're just going to have people running around in the streets. Like if there's no accountability, then what's the point? You have people are going to just basically go about their lives with nothing to lose. But I thought that montage was really good. I really wanted to play that because it just goes to show you the projection and the lies, and it's just, this is how it works with the left and these basically corrupt people in the media, and corrupt, obviously the people in the media were interviewing those in government who were trying to sit there or attempting to lie to you and tell you that Donald Trump is the bad guy weaponizing the justice system, and we're actually witnessing it right now. It's in play right now as we speak against Donald Trump and against against the J6ers as well. And they're going to do everything they possibly can. Every time you see another shooting that doesn't fit their narrative, they're either quiet about it, or if it's a white person that's shooting somebody and not a transvestite, they're going to go after them and tell them that your guns have to be taken away. Fannie Willis is a whole different episode. But her case is falling apart because of all the corruption. And you can see too that, they're using Letitia James is obviously not, I don't know how these people got their law degrees. I mean, I really don't. I mean, these are some of the dumbest lawyers, and they're in positions of very, very important positions that determine either life or death, or whether or not somebody spends the rest of their life in prison or not, or how much money they have to pay. Welcome to some of you, T-Code, Hammy. If you want to support the channel and have a message read aloud, you can go to streamlabs.com/Den Hendrickson. It's scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. You can support the channel that way. As little as $5, and again, have your message read aloud. Or you can also become an exclusive member by going to DennisHendrickson.com and signing up. You can sign up for free. You can also be a paid member there, but you can join free there. And then any content that I don't put on YouTube or Rumble will be there. And I do have, I want you guys to check these shirts out. I have these shirts that we just came out with, 1776-2024, and it has Donald Trump and George Washington standing next to each other. So we have a bunch of different, you have sweatshirts, women's, men's, all kinds of different things. So if you go to DennisHendrickson.store, you can help us out there too. And again, I appreciate you all being here. Again, WH Grandpa, I really do appreciate the referrals of people coming over. That's very nice of you, and the support is very nice because, like I said before, it's a lot of people doing what I do, so there's a lot of competition. But I hope that I have a somewhat of a unique way of delivering some of the news and going into some different things that some others don't go into, or uniqueness of the delivery. So again, thank you. And then this is one more thing I wanted to play, just to make you all mad, because it made me mad, is Leslie Stahl. Leslie Stahl Not only did Trump have to go through everything that he had to go through during his presidency with the Russian collusion hoax, the fake dossier, which was put together by the Clintons. Thanks, Gnarly. Thank you for reminding me. Please hit the like button. That also helps out too. And last time when everybody was here, it really helped the algorithm, at least with definitely with Rumble, tremendously. That was very helpful. But here Trump is dealing with his entire presidency with a ridiculous charge of Russian collusion. And also he was saying that his campaign was spied on, and we find out later on more and more information is coming out that was actually true. But Leslie Stahl, I want you to listen to how Leslie Stahl talks to Donald Trump. She's extremely condescending. Just go, oh no, that didn't happen. She talks to him like he's a 4-year-old. And this is in the Marxist playbook. They literally say in the Marxist playbook, Charlie Gibson was one who did this, and Katie Couric was another one that they actually talk about in the Marxist playbook. How they act condescending, they turn their heads, they do certain things to make the politician, in this case Trump, and in the other one was Sarah Palin, to make them look stupid. So let me play this for you. It should anger you. And again, it kind of shows you now that I mentioned it to you, what the mainstream leftist media was doing in order to just be condescending to Trump and make him look dumb.
Watch him walk out of a store, and he's walking with ice cream. And the question the media asks him, what kind of ice cream, what flavor ice cream do you have? And he's in the midst of a scandal.
He's not.
And he's taking... Of course he is, Leslie.
He's not.
Of course
He's
he is.
not.
It's the biggest, second biggest scandal.
So,
the biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign,
there's
Leslie.
no real evidence of that.
Of course there is.
No.
It's all over the place. Leslie,
Sir,
they spied on my campaign and they got caught.
Can I say something? This is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie, they spied on my campaign.
Well, we can't verify
It's been totally
that.
verified.
No.
It's been, just go down and get the papers. They spied on my campaign, they got caught.
No.
And then they went much further than that, and they got caught. And you will see that, Leslie, and you know that, but you just don't want to put it on the air.
As a matter of fact, I don't know.
So that's what we're dealing with. And there are people that still get their news from CBS, CNN, MSNBC, and they still believe it. But if that was true, it would be on the news. I hear it. I still hear it. I've heard people say it. My wife's heard people say it. So people literally think that if news that I'm talking about today wasn't on CNN, that it's not true. This is what we have to deal with, unfortunately. And I'm hoping that there are enough of us, and that's why it's so important for all of us to stick together and get all of this information out as much as we possibly can to overcome the dummies. Because you're just going to have dummies that listen to Leslie Stahl. I mean, there's nothing that Trump's been proven wrong about. He's proven right every single time. And God willing, he will be on these other deals too, on these trials. I mean, here's E. Jean Carroll. Here's another one. Okay, so here's another case where she wins $80-some million, which should be overturned. But let's look at some Twitter posts that she made back in 2011, 2012. Here's one from 2014. There's no such thing as a slut, only sexual geniuses. There's another one from 2011. Would men have invented chastity belts, veils, and Crocs if women weren't just unbelievably hot? Honey, you were born to seduce. There's another one in 2011. Let's play Boff, Marry, Strangle. I'll start. Ryan Seacrest, Dick Cheney, Steve Jobs. And yes, I know the game is really called Fuck, Marry, Kill. There's another one from 2012. Lust, Fame, Jealousy. Violently making out. Another week begins tomorrow. There's a pattern of behavior here with this individual that no one will talk about. Here's one of my favorites, 2018. Big dick energy. Obama's got it. Putin's got it. Maxine Waters got it. Who's on your big dick energy list? And here's a really weird one. Sex tip I learned from my dog. When in heat, chase the male until he collapses with exhaustion and then jump him. And I won't read the rest of them, but this is E. Jean Carroll. She's the one who accused Donald Trump of sexual assault. Here she is with Anderson Cooper.
A victim.
I was not thrown.
A victim.
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished. Which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Tell. I mean, come on. I mean, what does this remind you of? It reminds me a lot of the Kavanaugh trial. I mean, nothing ever happened with her. She got away with claiming that Kavanaugh did all these crazy things. Nothing happened with her. Now, this video is with our friend. Yeah, Anderson was trying to get out of there. I mean, he didn't even know what to do. I mean, he was weirded out by the whole thing. I mean, she's certifiable, man. Now, this is with our friend Rachel Maddow. And watch, those are her lawyers on either side. Watch how they react.
You've talked about using some of Trump's money that you're about to get to help shore up women's rights. Do you know what that might be, what that might look like?
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
Tell me.
I had such great ideas for all the good I'm going to do with this money. First thing, Rachel, you and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes, new shoes, motorcycle for Crowley, new fishing rod for Robbie. Rachel, what do you want? Penthouse? It's yours,
Nothing.
Rachel. Penthouse and France? You want France? You want to go fishing in France? No? Oh, all right, okay.
That's a joke.
All right, okay.
That's a joke.
Although if me fishing in France could do something for women's rights, I would take the hit. You know, I would obviously take one for the team. All right, let me as if you need persuasion in that regard.
So there you have E. Jean Carroll making a joke of the entire thing. Now, if this was really sexual assault, you would think that a normal person would treat it much more delicately, not make jokes, and immediately say, yes, this money will go towards research or helping other people. Now, it still has to go through the appeal process, and this is they're spiking the football before they even cross the line in the end zone. They're not even in the end zone yet, and they spike the football. And I love how all of these leftists are all running around cheering. And it's like, the game's not over yet. You got a ways to go here. And so for her to act this way, I certainly hope an appeals court would see this and take this into consideration, that this is not a serious case. And for those of you who don't know, they had to go through through a process to lengthen the amount of time, the statute of limitations. Sorry, are we breaking the feed? Mine keeps pausing. Is anybody else pausing? I've got 4 running. I've got Rumble, YouTube, Twitch, Triumph Batty, welcome on Twitch, and Odyssey. Let me know if it's just Hammy that's having a problem, if there's somebody else, and I can knock off a feed, because we're getting close to 9 o'clock, and I could knock off YouTube anyway. Okay. All right, thanks, WH. So they had to go through a whole process to extend the I forgot it again, the statute of limitations in order for her to file this. And then, of course, the timing is like, yeah, when did this happen? This happened in the 80s or 90s? When you were in your 50s? Because she's like 83 or something now. So this isn't a weaponization of the justice system. People need to take this way more seriously than they are. This is lawfare, which is a tactic used in warfare. Lawfare is a warfare tactic. We are not in a kinetic civil war, but we are in a non-kinetic civil war. And lawfare is part of that civil war. It's a way to assassinate, instead of somebody assassinating with bullets, you're assassinating character. And E. Jean Carroll is that perfect wacko that, in my opinion, allegedly, and be careful, but in my opinion, is that perfect person that is willing to do this kind of stuff, because there's other videos too. She had a show, I think, in the 80s, I think, as well, where it was like, you just watch this show and you go, dude, she's gonzo. But Trump, and here's another one. The whole thing with Fani Willis, this all started. This was the grand jury, the head of the grand jury, in the Fani Willis case.
Personally want to hear from the former president. I wanted to hear from the former president, but honestly, I kind of wanted to subpoena the former president because I got to swear everybody in. And so I thought it'd be really cool to get 60 seconds with President Trump of me looking at him and being like, do you solemnly swear? And me getting to swear him in. I kind of just thought that would be an awesome moment.
That's what we're talking about. Like, Do you think in any other circumstances somebody like this would ever get that close to the president and have that kind of power over him? But they figured out a way. Lawfare right now is being used. Prosecutorial misconduct is being used, and there's no repercussions. And there has to be. The first thing that has to happen as soon as Trump comes in is that these judges and these lawyers need to be sanctioned.
The important thing here for us as a country is what's going to happen to the whole Republican Party, the whole infrastructure of the RNC, and everybody who mobilizes to elect a Republican president in an election year when Donald Trump is going to be waging war on the rule of law as part of his campaign, as the central point of his campaign. I mean, with the $100 million around the Jean Carroll stuff, with the $450 million around this stuff, with the 4 criminal trials still to come, the whole point of his campaign is going to be that the court system and the legal system and judges and court rulings are terrible, and we got to get rid of those things. Is the RNC, are all the donors, is every Republican member of Congress going to join him in that? In trying to destroy the idea of the rule of law in America and the idea that judges' rulings are things that we should cover, that we should follow, and that court orders are things that are mandatory, that we must follow because we believe in the rule of law. Are the Republicans everywhere who have enabled him also going to enable him now when he comes after the next prosecutors and the next judges and the next jurors and the next witnesses and the next court clerks and the next fricking bailiffs or whoever else is involved in the next courtroom drama he's involved in? Are all of the Republicans going to line up in waging war on that branch of government too? That is the central question for the future of the country, regardless of how the election turns out.
The answer is yes, you dumb bitch. And I hope he goes after her first. Because Rachel Maddow is somebody who spreads disinformation. Rachel Maddow is someone who lies. Rachel Maddow decided, we're not going to play Trump's speech after Iowa because it was a hard decision for us. Do you see what she's already doing? She already knows. Oh shit. We're in trouble because she knows that all these trials are bogus. And so, God forbid, Trump retaliates. And this is what they do. They dish it out. They project and they dish it out and they hit you. They punch you in the face. And if you retaliate and you punch them back, it's like, oh my God, they clutch their pearls. Oh my God, I can't believe you just hit me. Yeah, but you've been hitting me the entire time. You know, you think that I'm going to just sit there and I'm not going to hit you back? And that's what Trump needs to do. He needs to hit these people back. We went through an entire 4 years of Trump's presidency of getting punched in the face the entire time. And that can't happen again. It absolutely cannot happen again. Rachel Maddow gets paid $30,000 an episode to lie to you. And what I find funny is the people that are fans of hers think because she's a lesbian that somehow she's moral. She's one of the most incredibly immoral people that I've ever come across. And it's unbelievable to me that she still has a job. I mean, her most famous lie is how the shot worked. I mean, they're just, it's amazing to me that someone like her is just obviously dead inside. She has there's no conscience there. There's nothing in her brain at all. There's no moral framework or fiber in her body. But she's going to sit here and tell you now, after all of this stuff that's going on, that Trump is going to be the guy who uses the justice system in a wrong way when we're watching it happen to him right now. Okay, I want to go back to New York City because New York City is in for my prediction is going to be is that New York City is going to be in really, really bad shape. And what's happening is, again, I don't know how many Empire State Buildings it was. It was some article that I read. It was several Empire State Buildings worth of office space, 20 or 30 or something, that were empty. Washington, D.C., I think, is at any given time, their occupancy is like 20 or 30%. So what that means is that those who own these office buildings are not getting paid. And the banks and those who have loans on them have extended their loans out, and those are coming due soon. They've given them extensions to continue to make payments, but those are starting to come due. And so those mortgages have to be paid. And then on top of that, obviously, just like any real estate piece of property, it's going to drop in value. So the market value is going to drop significantly. But what does that mean? Well, the assessed value has to drop as well. But New York City has made it very clear, and it's obvious why they're doing this. They know that if they start dropping the assessed values, they are in deep shit. They already are in deep shit because everybody's leaving New York City. You know, Billionaires Row is basically empty. I don't know why anyone would want to live in that hellhole. I mean, it used to be, like I said, it was a great city when Giuliani was mayor, but before that, and it's just funny to me, these people that live there and they vote for this stuff. So I have zero sympathy for them. Just don't come to Florida. And so a major happening is going to take place in New York City, to where, and this guy Peebles is going to talk about it here. Don Peebles is a real estate investor, and he's a contributor to CNBC. He's not a Donald Trump by any means, but he knows what's going on and what's happening in New York. And the bottom line is he's saying that New York City is giving the finger to the property owners and saying, you're going to have to sue us. If you want your assessed value to come down so you pay less tax money to us, you're going to have to sue.
Don, this sort of rolling real estate apocalypse has not happened. It has not come upon us yet en masse. Certainly some buildings. You and I have talked about this a lot. Right now, can you figure out the value of a building? I read an article this morning that one of the problems is that nobody actually seems to know what a lot of these buildings should be worth.
Well, I mean, I just heard Richard's comments, and Richard's a good friend. I saw him last week, and he's certainly very pessimistic about the market. I'm pessimistic about office buildings as well, but I don't think that the reason we're not seeing activity is because people don't understand value. I think we've got a good handle on the value of many of these buildings. If you operate from the perspective that office occupancy has changed forever until something else shocks the system, you know, probably decades from now, we're going to have a hybrid workforce. And so that has had a major impact on office buildings. But this is different, by the way, than, say, the early 90s, because the banks don't have over leverage. They are at 60% of the values of those assets when they made the loan. So they can take a 40% hit in value and not be hurt. It's the equity that's wiped out, and it's the mezz lenders that are wiped out. And the banks just don't want to deal with all of these headaches. They were hoping things would change. They're not. So I think we'll begin to see more asset sales happening mid-year into the third quarter and fourth quarter, where we'll see a lot of activity, I think, in terms of commercial office buildings.
I heard a crazy story from a good friend of mine, somebody you probably know, but I won't say his name on the air. We could talk offline. And he told me a story which I thought was insane, but I can't prove it. You probably can. which is he was telling me the story about in New York City, a building, and let's say it was bought for $700 a square foot. Okay, it's somewhere around there. And it's in distress, and they just sold the building for like $350 a square foot. So the building was sold. The guy that bought it lost basically half his value. But in the real estate transaction, New York City valued the building at $703 a square foot, even after the sale at half its value, because they have to pretend this is not happening for tax reasons, for tax revenue reasons. Is that possible?
Yes.
Yes, it is. In fact, I started in the real estate business as an appraiser and a consultant, and I built and owned the largest property assessment appeals business in Washington, D.C., and we prospered in the early 90s because the government was refusing to recognize that the massive decline in commercial real estate that took place. And so what's going to happen is the governments are going to force property owners to sue them and appeal their assessments and sue them to get their values lowered. And that's because they cannot afford the massive revenue loss. D.C. alone is going to be down $400 million
they're going to be
in
screwed.
property tax revenues this year alone.
So, think about that for a second. They're going to force these property owners to sue. Do you realize how much that's going to cost the city as well? I mean, they have to get experts in. They have to get property appraisers in. There's all of this stuff, the process that they have to go through with these court cases. By the way, I'm going to pause right now. I'm going to shut down the YouTube stream. So anybody that's on YouTube, please come over to Rumble. Go to rumble.com/Dennis Hendrickson. So I am going to end the YouTube stream right now.